Hi guys, welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. This is chapter 7 of the Until Dawn episode. So item 1 of the agenda, this is an intervention. Anya, we're going to need you to stop taking drugs. Like, you're giving us a bad rep.
What the fuck?
Outed me.
What the fuck's going on there?
Right, item 2, Until Dawn chapter 7, let's get to it. So it starts off with Sam, so she comes back, and then this chapter's very dependent on whether you got captured as the psycho or not. Now, to recap everyone, I got captured as Sam. Anya, how about you?
I also got captured.
And Jack?
I didn't get captured.
Okay, so this is interesting. We're going to have a bit of variety here. So I'll start with Jack. So when you don't get captured, you find out a lot of clues about the masked man and who he is, because he's going to get revealed this chapter. How was it for you, Jack, when you went around finding it, waking up as Sam?
I was really puzzled at this bit, because I was finding all these things. I found the psychiatric report, found, the cell phone with the texts from Dr. Hill, and the voice recording where you explicitly hear Josh rehearsing as the psycho. But I remember thinking, I've seen him die. How is this even happening? So even though that the game threw the answer in my face, I was still quite puzzled, and I'm pretty sure a bit after that, I think Sam runs into Mike, and she says to him that, there's this psycho guy, and she's sure that Josh is involved somehow. I actually ended up going along with her way of thinking, that he was involved with the psycho, but it went wrong, and he's dead, and now you've just got to fight off, this masked dude.
Okay, yeah, fair, because it's a really interesting scene when you go around and you look at the clues. Now, I think some of them you can actually miss, because you can go in a door that I think cuts the scenes away, so you can miss certain clues. There's one specifically with a blueprint where you can look at the device, the saw device, and the fact that, there's a cardboard cutout that he puts his face through on a dummy, that gets cut in half, essentially.
Did not know that.
Yeah, you can find the blueprint of all his, what's the word? Devices, I guess, saw gadgets.
Oh.
Like you say, there's the one of him recording his voice, and I think he does is it a John Wayne impression, the cowboy guy? And you hear him in an earlier scene quoting that to Chris when he goes through the window. So there are a few little breadcrumbs that you can get here to know that it is Josh Schooner. I think another one as well is very relevant to Dr. Hill, actually. You find a phone, and I found this really interesting, and Dr. Hill is trying to stop him from doing his plan. I know at this point we know that Josh is the person who's been doing all these therapy or psychology sessions. I thought it was so interesting to find out that Dr. Hill is actually this sane therapist. And like you covered in an earlier episode, Jack, he's simply like a figment of his imagination, but he's taken his real therapist and he's gone in this tangent. Anya, obviously, like myself, you got caught as well. Did you find any of these clues really interesting to look at I imagine you did a replay of this?
Yeah, I did. I noticed too with that blueprint thing you were talking about. If Sam does find it, she brings it up when she finds the rest of the group. She's like, it was for a dummy, the one that Josh was in. I think Josh might not be dead. So that's a thing I really like too. I think that Chris and Ashley did it last chapter, but if you find enough clues, they'll talk about it. They'll start to piece things together. So it's not just picking things up for a collectible 100% experience. They actually acknowledge the things that you find. So it's pretty cool. And yeah, the Josh's cell phone was a nice little twist. Oh, Dr. Hill really is real. Just what all those sessions we're having with him is just kind of Josh using him as a way to tear himself down. And I don't know. It's very interesting though, all the stuff that's in there. The remembrance board of Hannah and Beth.
I completely agree. Like you say, it's a really interesting point how the dialogue is really affected by the clues you get. There's so many different ways that this whole scene can play out. I'm pretty sure if you get all the clues later on when you confront Josh, Sam says something along the lines of, your hands were all over it, it was clearly you. Yeah, and some people don't get that, and I just thought that was really cool that Sam can react differently depending on the clues you got. Now, my next question for you, Anya, is: are you underwhelmed that you got captured, or are you kind of glad? Because you could almost argue that the surprise is a lot more hitting when you don't know it is Josh.
That's a good question. Like, I don't know, I guess obviously I was disappointed, like, oh damn it, I was so close. But then, like, when I looked back and saw, like, how much you could get, like, obviously, like, your first playthrough isn't gonna be, like, 100% perfect. So it's nice to, like, have something to replay for, like, other than just, you know, keeping everybody alive, but also just finding stuff that you missed before.
Yeah, of course. So Jack, a simple question for you, but did you feel really rewarded that you didn't get captured by the psycho and you get to find all these goody clues that Anya and I wouldn't have on our blind playthrough?
I'm really glad I did. I wish that I found that blueprint that you mentioned, because I think that would have gone a long way for me to thinking that it was Josh. But it's funny, it's one of those things where when it got revealed as Josh, I wasn't surprised, but at the same time a part of me was, because I was thinking, well, I saw him get cut in half. So how does that add up? Which obviously it goes and it does explain later on. But nonetheless, yeah, it was still good not getting captured, because then you sort of get that sense of reward that, you know, you've escaped the psycho.
Yeah, because, like, for myself, obviously I was gutted I got caught as Sam, but it really surprised me that it was revealed to be Josh. I'm glad I got caught, because I thought it was kind of better for myself that I didn't have all these clues, because the revealing was so much more hitting for me. Now, obviously, if you do find all the clues, it must feel rewarding, but from almost like a movie perspective, it just was that much hitting for me. Especially because, like I said, my brother convinced me that it was my answers in the earlier therapy sessions that got Josh killed, and I was tricked on my blind playthrough to thinking it was really my fault I got Josh killed. So when it was revealed, it was such a cool moment for me. I mean, Anya, how did you react to Josh unmasking himself?
Even without finding all the clues the first time around, I kind of saw it coming, you know? And I was like, okay, I can't wait to see how his death in chapter 4 is explained, because, like, you know, I didn't find the blueprint, I didn't know that he was faking it, but, like, I still had, like, this idea that he was behind it somehow. So I was just like, I knew it. Don't know how, but you're alive and I knew it.
I sort of felt like egg on my face as well when it was revealed to be him, because I was thinking, like, this is Rami Malek, probably the most established actor in the bunch. Maybe, I mean, especially now, maybe back then he was probably on par with maybe Hayden Panettiere, I'm not too sure. But yeah, I was like, of course he couldn't have been the first one dead. He's Rami Malek, and, like, how have I not realised he's, like, one of the big villains of the game? But yeah, are we happy to move on to the Emily scene?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with you, Anya. Were you pretty happy here that
my girl was alive, yeah. And, like, definitely some of the coolest scenes in the game, her segments here and in the next chapter. You get to explore the mines for the first time, really, instead of just, like, walking through it briefly. But yeah, it was definitely exciting to see her.
Yeah, another thing we mentioned as well with the dialogue, it kind of relates to Emily as well, how your choices affect it, because I'm pretty sure she can go around the mines, and if Matt did try to save her, she can be very much like, you know, walking through the mines saying, oh, Matt, where are you? I miss you. But I'm pretty sure if Matt jumps to safety, she can kind of be a little angry at him. And I'm pretty sure her dialogue can change based on that choice, and I thought that was, like, a really interesting thing to see. So yeah, Jack, what was your whole reaction? Did you know that Emily deep down would be alive?
Yeah, because it's like the first rule of horror, isn't it? If you don't see a dead body, then you sort of take them to be alive. And I did like this bit. How she didn't get attacked earlier, I don't know. Because, like, if you watch this back, you'll see that she makes so much noise. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't blame her for crying out loud, but there's like so much noise is made. She's like pushing mine carts and smashing the wood open. She's falling and stumbling over. She's screaming her head off, falling off ladders. Like there's so much going on. And I feel sorry for poor Matt, who can jump to safety and then he just sort of stumbles out into some tunnel and then he can get killed by a Wendigo. But yeah, like I really did enjoy this bit, and I feel that this is perhaps the darkest segment of the game, because you're wandering around as Emily, and obviously you've had the, like the whole Josh reveal, but this is where it starts tapping into the prologue a little bit. You start finding out what's happened to Hannah and Beth. Obviously you find Beth's head, and I think one little artistic touch that Supermassive did really well here, I remember playing as Emily, like walking into this room, and as I was walking as Emily towards the camera, it then slightly panned and you could see like Beth's head. It was sort of like a blurry image, and then of course that's when you can pick it and sort of turn it round and it just sort of falls out. But yeah, like just to reflect on that, it was definitely the darkest part of the game. I really enjoyed it.
It was a really good section, especially this is the first time you sort of really start to hear the Wendigos in the background as the flamethrower's going off, and there's a bit of combat that you're going to kind of get nearer and nearer to. And the things you mentioned as well, by how dark the scene is, I think not only from, Beth's death and the severed head, but also the fact that you find out Hannah survived, and it was so hitting to find that out, that she was wandering around alone, and it kind of made you feel almost really guilty about the prank, and it brought up chapter 1 again, or the whole prologue, really bleeding well. And I just thought the whole scene was actually, like you say, really good. I think Emily needed it as well. Her scenes before, I wouldn't say tedious, but she had the radio tower, walking around with Matt a little bit, the kind of DLC. And I thought it was a really cool decision by Supermassive to give probably one of the coolest scenes of the game to Emily. So yeah, I do understand somewhat why someone like yourself, Anya, is a massive fan of this character. Do you think without the scene, Emily would be a weak character, Anya?
I don't know, because I'm probably one of the few that actually liked her before this as well. And like you were saying, it was a cool decision to give it to her. I was gonna say it's a interesting instance of having her prove herself kind of on her own, because she still kind of has her superficial moments, when she has to rip off her shirt and she's just damn it, this thing was $600, and
yeah.
But yeah, definitely a very interesting choice to have her choose, or not choose, or find everything, the stuff about Beth and Hannah, and just actually having her on her own. Because she is alone technically if you don't have Matt at the fire tower. Fun fact, he can also find his shoe around the same place that you find Hannah's glasses if he fell off the cliff.
Oh yeah, from the elk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if yeah, maybe she would be a little bit weaker, because obviously these whole points are to show her character traits, how resourceful she is, and just her being actually a strong survivor of everything around her, because not a lot of people I think could just fall off a radio tower into the mines, hurt their knee, climb a bunch of stuff, and fall a bunch of times.
Yeah, this scene is especially you do feel a lot more sorry for Emily, especially if Matt dies and you hear her crying out his name sometimes, and not only is she doesn't even know she's lost her boyfriend, but she literally is by herself and she's close to this danger. And as we've just sort of unmasked Josh and we know that he's not linked to the flamethrower or the weird screeching, the story does start to unravel, and you find out a lot more what happens in the next chapter, which we'll cover next week. But yeah, no, the whole scene, absolute masterpiece. So we'll go back to the Josh reveal, because that's what happens in the scene. So I asked you if you guys were surprised, but were you happy to see Josh back? I'll start with you, Jack.
I was, yeah, I was, because going in a sort of a blind playthrough, I know I said in a previous episode that I was like, oh no, what did I do wrong for him and Ashley to end up in that situation where one of them had to die? It almost felt a bit sort of unjust. So to see him, that it was sort of like this whole Machiavellian, he was sort of this Mr. Burns sort of figure where he sort of created a plan for them all. I did like that idea. I think it wasn't necessarily such a problem for me, but I know that other people have said in the past that they find the transition from one storyline of Josh being revealed as the psycho to you suddenly being thrust into the whole Wendigo storyline a little bit, I don't want to say jarring, I don't want to fucking say jarring. But yeah, I'm going to have to think of another word because I can't say jarring.
Surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, I just find it a bit surprising.
Yeah, of course.
Just leave that in the edit.
But yeah, I mean, how about yourself, Anya? Were you happy to see Joshua back?
Yeah, I think so. Especially because like at this point too, like Rami does a great job of like his acting here. Like after the fact, like when Mike and Chris get him later, and then he's just like talking to everybody, just like, "This is great. You guys will be internet sensations." I don't know. It's just really fun, honestly. Like I wanted to be mad, just like, what the hell? You're mad at them for pranking your siblings, and then now you're pranking them, making them think you were dead, having them like choose life or death between each other. Like, what's wrong with you? But he made it fun and entertaining most of the time.
I completely agree with you. I'm so glad you brought up his performance because I was going to do the same thing as well. It's so interesting to see sort of Josh when you first meet him outside of the lodge breaking in, being, just a bit of a bro to Chris. And then to now where his mental state has completely deteriorated at this point. And yeah, you get smacked in the face by Mike. And then we go to the shed scene, which I thought was a bit of a weird one. We're presented with a weird choice by Chris, who, by the way, and I know this has been brought up in other videos, I'm not the first person to think of this point, says, "Don't call me bro," and then in the next line calls Josh bro. But, I guess, old habits die hard, right? But yeah, what did we make of this shed scene? Jack, I'll start with you.
First thought was, why on earth they tie him up in the shed? I know it's a bit of nitpicking, but why would they... I mean, obviously they're not aware of the Wendigo threat, kinda. But why would they tie him up out there for it's a considerable walk away from the lodge to that shed, and not just keep him in sight at all times? That was my first sort of nitpick of it. But yeah, it's sort of it's strange because like it's quite a tense scene because you've got Chris and Mike accusing Josh of killing Jess, essentially. And obviously as the player, you know that Josh is telling the truth at this point. You know that it's some sort of other threat, ends up being the Wendigo. But then he almost gives it a bit of comic relief, like when he's tied up and he sort of goes on about, the wiggle room, and he says, oh, can we order pizza? So maybe that was Supermassive's way of like trying to balance up the tone. Maybe they sort of didn't want it to get too heavy and dark, so they needed that little bit of respite from Josh.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. And I like you say, the performance again, it's brilliant. It gets even better here. The pizza line, I laughed at that a little bit, I must admit. How about yourself, Anya?
I thought it was an interesting choice. I never even thought about like bringing him out into the shed instead of just like keeping him like around everybody else. Like that would be the smart choice. I don't know. I thought it was interesting just to have like Josh clearly needs some help here, and you can just have the choices to just beat the shit out of him. Like Chris will punch him if Ashley stabbed him. And and Mike can bonk him, or was it Chris who can hit him? I know Mike like can aim the gun at him, and then Chris can either like disarm him or not. But doesn't somebody hit him in the head?
Yeah, Chris can hit Josh in the head, right? By choice, right? You can disarm Mike or hit Josh in the head.
Yeah.
Which did you do, Anya?
I think I tried to disarm Mike, and then Mike's all offended, just like, do you think I'd actually shoot him? Just like, well, holding a gun to his face. He's obviously provoking you over Jazz.
Yeah.
I don't know, and you seem like the kind of guy who might shoot somebody.
Yeah, true. We'll find about that later. I mean, to be honest, I did the exact same as you, Anya. I disarmed Mike. I was like, I'm not going to hit Josh in the head. We've tied him up. This is like no relevance. I mean, I should have done nothing really, but I was an idiot. I didn't realize that was an option. Hey, Jack, what did you do?
Disarmed him.
Yeah. Like just beating him up was a little bit overkill. Like, yeah, he was a bit of a prick to you guys tonight, but
yeah, no, that's literally it. I mean, and then obviously Chris is told to go back to the lodge, so that ends the chapter really. But I do want to backpedal to something. So it's revealed it's Josh, right? Now this is something I've never really understood, and either you guys can kind of help me understand, or if not, hopefully anyone in the comments can. But Josh has got about a year-long window, right, to plan this whole scheme against his friends after his sisters died, right? I don't know how long he actually does take to plan everything. But surely it must take a lot of days and nights to set everything up. Now, I know someone has explained that with the Wendigos, a lot of them are actually in the sanatorium. And I think someone explained to me that Hannah was the only one that could roam free. How is it that Josh has never bumped into a Wendigo before, or the year before where they were all out? Is it, I don't know, obviously Hannah became a Wendigo, under a year ago, right? Because she was obviously human. But yeah, how is it that Josh has never bumped into Hannah Wendigo this whole time he's sort of setting up the lodge?
I know the stranger has all the rest of them in the sanatorium.
Yeah.
And I figure if he's hanging around, he's probably if the stranger has found Hannah at any point, he's probably holding her back at least, because she is the strongest one. I don't know how long it would have taken her to become as she is. I don't know. That's a good point, because I figure probably just did it during the day, right? Because even before Hannah, people could go up to the lodge no problem, and they've never really seen another Wendigo, or the the big one, because all the other ones are in the sanatorium.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those ones, isn't it, where it might be a plot hole. It might just be Josh just was really lucky that he never bumped into a Wendigo. And if it is the stranger fending them off for life, why is the stranger and Josh never bumped into each other, or have they not? I do find the stranger a really fascinating, funny character, because it seems that whenever we don't, speak to him, which we will do in the next chapter, he's just always with his flamethrower. Now, there's so many questions about how does he have infinite flamethrower, fuel? Does he take any lunch breaks? Because he just always seems to be fighting Wendigos off wherever he is. What is his vendetta as well? Why can't he just maybe go home, put his feet up? Why is it that he's just constantly flamethrowing these Wendigos, and probably not succeeding that well either? But I don't know, maybe he's a bit of a Samaritan keeping them in the sanatorium. I don't know, maybe I've missed something. But yeah, it's one of those ones, right? But yeah, are we happy to wrap it up there, or any additional comments, guys?
Yeah, nothing from me.
All right, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, guys. We've been the Butterfly Effect podcast, and Anya, she's not one of us.
It's because I do drugs.
But yeah, all our links are in the descriptions. If you could help me understand those points at the end there, because I'm fickle. But yeah, thank you very much for joining you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Well done.